breaking right now, the Ofcommunists have imposed a £100,000 fine on my former employer, GB News, simply because they interviewed the Prime Minister. Now, this is a major scandal that brings to mind so many questions about free speech in the UK, which is under serious threat. You've seen Elon Musk, the free speech owner of X, point out which direction the UK is heading in as a result of these types of decisions. Let me be very clear. Right now, I am free. Yes, I am constrained by the big tech platforms on which I broadcast, but I am not regulated by the Ofcommunists. And the problem is, because the Ofcommunists were so determined to shut GB News down, that is what they want, mark my words, that is what the establishment want. They do not want this broadcaster on air. What's happened is that GB News is now captured. They have capitulated. They are terrified. Their presenters are told not to talk about the biggest issues of the day, including the Southport massacre cover-up, which means the whole point of GB News, the whole reason that I was so proud to be the launch presenter on GB News is now gone. And without wanting to make this about me, because it's not just about me, but it is about the presenters who were prepared to challenge the free speech. They are Mark Stein. They are Calvin Robinson, Father Calvin Robinson, now a regular on this show. And yes, they are Lawrence Fox. And we know what happened with myself and Lawrence Fox. And it was our throwing under the bus by our bosses to try and satisfy the Ofcommunists that was the beginning of the end for GB News, because appeasement never works, folks. They had to stand up and say, no, we're going to fight for the right to free speech. That doesn't happen. Now, I'm going to show you an incredible example in a few moments about what happened when Tommy Robinson was raised on the channel and Andrew Pierce basically peed his pants, and they shut it down immediately. So GB News is in big trouble now because you can't trust it, you shouldn't trust it, and the Ofcommunists think they've got their way. Now let me take a close look now at both statements. So Ofcom released one saying Ofcom's earlier investigation found that an appropriately wide range of significant viewpoints was not presented and given due weight in the People's Forum. As a result, we concluded that the then Prime Minister Rishi Sunak had a mostly uncontested platform to promote the policies and performance of his government. Now, remember, they are saying that, the Ofcommunists are saying that, despite the fact they refused to investigate an interview conducted on Good Morning Britain, where the current Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, this was in the wake of the Southport massacre, was questioned on air by her own husband, the bloke she goes to bed with at night, Ed Balls. And they found no issue with that. Remember, Ed Balls isn't a journalist. It's a joke to say that Ed Balls is a broadcaster or a journalist. That's an offence to people like me. He's a politician. He's an activist. He was a Labour Party minister. But they say it's completely fine. No issues with Ed Balls interviewing his own wife, the serving Home Secretary. But GB News can't allow the public to ask questions of the serving Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. He was Prime Minister at the time. Now, GB News has responded. I would say it's too little too late, but I do want to show you their response. So this is from the Chief Executive, Angelo Frangopoulos. The announcement by Ofcom to impose sanctions upon GB News in relation to the People's Forum is a direct attack on free speech and journalism in the United Kingdom. We believe these sanctions are unnecessary, unfair, and unlawful. The High Court has already granted GB News permission to bring a judicial review to challenge Ofcom's decision that the programme was in breach of due impartiality requirements. The sanction imposed by Ofcom is therefore still subject to that legal challenge. The plan to sanction GB News flies in the face of Ofcom's duty to act fairly, lawfully, and proportionately to safeguard free speech, particularly political speech, on matters of public interest. We have believed from the very start The People's Forum was an important piece of public interest programming and that appropriate steps were taken to ensure due impartiality. But the issue is, GB News didn't take the same approach when it came to Mark Steyn, who was raising questions about the safety of the COVID vaccine. That was an important piece of public interest journalism, but they were happy to give in to the Ofcommunists. Now, Chris Davies of True Conservative Media, who's actually going to be on the show tomorrow, wrote on this, for the umpteenth time, a lesson in not appeasing the crocodile, hoping you'll get eaten last. From being a staple with me until the dismissal of Mark Steyn to now 0 eyeballs ever, GB News has been reduced to whimpering, controlled opposition. Shame. Meanwhile, Dan Wootton goes from strength to strength on Outspoken. Karma. I didn't just choose that because of that part, but I do appreciate it, Chris Davies. And in all seriousness, I know that if I were on GB News now, I would have not been able to deliver the digest that I delivered today about the cover-up involving the Southport massacre. And that's not because I'm breaking the law, it's because GB News is so terrified now and so captured. I speak to a lot of people at GB News, of course I do. Their presenters are told you're not allowed to post anything on X that's controversial, you have to stay away from controversial issues. And we saw evidence of what happens during controversial interviews. So the channel, to its credit, actually, earlier this week, decided to host the politician Andrew Bridgen on the show. Now, we know Andrew Bridgen, he's a controversial guy, but he has been absolutely right in terms of challenging the COVID vaccines. And he was on to talk about the jailing of Tommy Robinson. But quite naturally, other issues are related to the Tommy Robinson case. And there is an intersection, isn't there? Because the whole point about Tommy Robinson's jailing is how can Tommy Robinson be in jail when Hugh Edwards is free on the streets? But what you'll see here is absolute terror. Absolute terror when those issues are raised. And I know what happened because it happened to me, is you've got a producer in your ear saying, stop talking about that. Stop talking about that. And you see Andrew Pierce, who's totally captured part of the mainstream media, panic. Now, what's extraordinary is he then goes on to repeat shocking misinformation, trying to suggest that Hugh Edwards accessing child pornography, or child sex abuse is actually how it should be described, I'm sorry, child sex abuse images, that wasn't illegal. Now, I'll set this up. So at this point of the interview, they're talking about the Tommy Robinson film Silenced. And Miriam Cates is asked, she's the co-presenter with Andrew Pierce filling in for Bev Turner, and she was asked whether she'd watched the film. See what happens here.
Video.
No, I haven't watched the video, Andrew, no.
Well, I really suggest you watch it, see the quality of the journalism, the quality of the undercover investigation, interviewing the headmaster of the school in question, who says that they've been paid money to keep quiet. They've all signed NDAs and taken £10,000 to stay quiet. Nothing reported in the mainstream media. And yes, and you know from the House of Commons, there's many things that the House of Commons don't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about Peter Lynch and the death of a 61-year-old grandfather. They don't want to talk about Tommy Robinson. They don't want to talk about excess deaths. They don't want to talk about the vaccine arms. They don't want to talk about WHO. And they're not even going to talk now about the European Defence and Securities Union.
Yeah, but let's go back to the point here. He pleaded guilty in court yesterday to contempt of court.
He did release the film. Yes, he breached that.
So he broke the law. He pleaded guilty. He's been sent to prison. Isn't that the right thing?
We should all be under the law, but the law also should be applied equally. What about Hugh Edwards?
All right. Andrew, we're straying off the point. Andrew, you've had your point. You've had your say. That's Andrew Bridgen, the former independent MP. He cites really strong views and feelings, but at the end of the day, he pleaded guilty to contempt of court, and the judge is sent him to prison for 18 months. And of
course, you know, there'll be many people watching who think that what Tommy Robinson is trying to do in the things he's trying to expose is worthwhile thing. But the things that he is standing up for, the foundation of this country is the rule of law. Yeah. And if you break the law, especially if you plead guilty, then obviously going to prison is what happens.
We weren't shutting Andrew Bridgen down, but Andrew Bridgen was now going to introduce Hugh Edwards into this. Hugh Edwards did not break the law. He may have behaved inappropriately.
Well, he did. He just didn't receive a prison sentence. He was found in possession of child abuse.
He did break the law, and it was appalling. But I still...
It's a different crime.
It's a different crime. This was and contempt of court for judges is a very, very serious issue. It always has been. And
what the hell? So that's what's happened to GB News, sadly. I mean, it genuinely makes me sad. I was such a believer in the project. But that's what happens when you terrify your presenters into thinking that if you say something outside of acceptable thought, outside of mainstream media groupthink, you're going to be sacked, because that's what happened to Mark Stein, that's what happened to me, that's what happened to Calvin Robinson, that's what happened to Lawrence Fox. Obviously, there are some technicalities about our departures, but officially we left the station, but in reality we couldn't stay, given what had happened. And then you see them pumping out misinformation, like saying Hugh Edwards is innocent, just to try and stop talking about Tommy Robinson. But first, we've been told our whole lives that wrinkle creams were the easiest way to look younger. Now one doctor says that's nothing but old news. According to Dr. John Lake, the world-renowned Beverly Hills beauty expert, most wrinkle fixers on the market are nothing but glorified moisturizers. He says they hardly make a dent on your appearance, and some can even be harmful to your skin. Recently, Dr. Lake has focused his attention away from mainstream cosmetic practices. Why? So that he can pursue a revolutionary anti-aging breakthrough, one that some experts say could empty the wallets of the cosmetic industry. He says it's almost like Photoshop for your face. You may even be mad after seeing how easy it is to visibly erase wrinkles from view. His personal clients have dubbed his new do-it-yourself technique the age rewinder method, because it can take years or even decades off your appearance in under 2 minutes. So in light of this amazing breakthrough, Dr. Lake has released a step-by-step video to the public, free and uninterrupted, where he outlines exactly how to use this simple solution from home. If this helps even one person look younger or feel more confident, I'll be thrilled knowing I helped, Dr. Lake told reporters. The video has since gone viral. At first, it was shared by users on Facebook, but since then, it's racked up over 2.3 million views and counting. So far, the comments and feedback have been outstanding, with thousands of women reporting they look decades younger. One viewer even commented, "Best results of anything I've used. I can't believe how well this works. I'll never stop using this. I don't understand how it works, but the results are great. Thank you." So you can find out more about this yourself right now. Go to bhmd1.com/outspoken, or you can just click on the link in the description box below. Let me repeat, bhmd1.com/outspoken. Now, there is one thing Dr. Lake asks from his viewers. If watching this video helps you look and feel younger than you have in years, then please share this video with your friends and loved ones. Together, we have the power to help as many women reclaim a youthful look as possible. So go watch the video at bhmd1.com/outspoken right now, or just click on the link in the description box below. But now, back to the show. So, Dr. Daniel Pitt, look, I know I have a vested interest in this one, but a £100,000 fine for GB News because they interviewed the Prime Minister, when you have Yvette Cooper being interviewed on Good Morning Britain by her own husband. This is a complete setup, isn't it?
Well, the moral of the story is that don't get a Prime Minister interviewed by the people. Just get the Prime Minister's spouse to do it. Then you're fine. But it just seems absurd to me. It's interesting to think that the segment on Good Morning Britain had 8,000 complaints, and the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, at the time, the People's Forum had 500. So people were more upset and willing to complain about the Ed Balls, Yvette Cooper husband-wife interview than the Prime Minister being interviewed by members of the public that were selected by an independent group, which you would have thought, well, that's reasonable. one thing that tickled me when I read the statement was that for Ofcom, the lawyers said that trying to get Keir Starmer to do the same program, because they did ask him, was a speculative hope. Therefore, I think, well, shouldn't Starmer go on to programs like this and be questioned by members of the public? Isn't our whole point of our parliamentary
and also it's his
democracy?
It's his choice. If he chooses to do it, then fine. As long as he's given the option, it should be fine. I mean, look, I have very strong views on this. I don't think the Ofcommunists should exist at all. Ofcom should be abolished. We should have a First Amendment in this country. It's utterly ridiculous to police broadcasting in this way when we have a free internet. Although, of course, the thing they want to do next is patrol the internet, which is truly terrifying. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.